The man simply known as Gramps is a Yakuza member, and although that he's a little bit older and he's definitely past his prime, he is still a much feared member within his community. But that all changes when he's set up and killed by an old friend, and he's now reborn into this world as a princess. We start by seeing a man being extorted by a group of thugs for over 500,000 yen, and he's just begging them to go home when a man walks in, an old guy who they call Gramps, who just casually sits down and hands the thugs over a business card, and it's like, hey, look, I'm a Yakuza member, you guys don't want to play with me anymore. He tells the thugs that they need to get out of here and return all the money they took from the guy, but obviously the people start arguing back to him, saying that he's just an old man now and the Yakuza have already had their run, that this is their town now. When bam, the old guy stands up and kicks him right in the stomach, forcing him back and telling him to never come to this town again. I mean, who does this guy think he is, coming into the Yakuza's territory acting like he owns the place? You see Gramps just look up at the thugs with this menacing look and they just run away. They're super scared of him already. Later on, we see a meeting between Gramps, which is the Yakuza member, and a former friend of his, which is from the main family Shishido, which is the former partner that had actually hired Gramps to get rid of some punks that were giving him trouble. But this time, he tells him that he needs to start laying low as the cops are looking for him, and he tells him that in order to do so, he'll help him hide and to meet him at the Tokyo S word at 4 a.m. We see Gramps arrive and he starts looking around wondering why his partner picked such a very odd time as 4 a.m. to meet, when suddenly 5 shadowy figures rush out from the moonlight, rushing towards Gramps as he prepares to defend himself. One of them takes a baseball bat and smacks him across the head, and we get a glimpse of him, and then it's actually the thug from before that's back for his revenge. And Gramps quickly realizes that this wasn't a meeting with the former friend, it's actually a setup. The men continue jumping and beating on Gramps, but he fights back and he's able to land a few hits despite suffering multiple blows and bleeding at this point. He makes a stand for himself, and as he starts blanking out, he starts remembering his past, wondering how this happened, how he's been fighting all of his life ever since he was young, and how he's now actually losing. The thug from before screams and swings the baseball bat down on Gramps, striking him, with Gramps grappling him at the same time, with the thug ripping open his shirt, exposing a tattoo on the back of a Tenyo, which is like a divine spiritual womanly being in Japan, similar to how like angels are. The two of them are grappling each other, and Gramps starts falling off of the edge over the bridge, but at the same time as he's falling, he grabs a hold of the thug, bringing him down with him, and we see both Gramps and the thug start sinking down into the ocean below. And as Gramps' vision fades, he suddenly opens his eyes, coughing and wheezing for air, looking around, and he's now in a forest with people around him, wondering how he ended up here, and assuming that the thugs are back to finish the job. And he now looks and he's a young girl now. He sees several figures around him in robes wearing weird masks with like 4 circle holes on them, and he's looking around wondering if these are the thugs that are just like messing with him. Maybe they're doing some weird like Halloween prank on him, when all of a sudden a huge goblin looking thing that's wearing skulls as a necklace comes through the trees, grabbing one of the weird people, saying that the plan hasn't changed and the princess is to be eaten alive by the goblins, licking her lips and saying that the princess's royal blood and royal heart must taste good. And she starts getting closer to Gramps, and as it's getting closer to Gramps, it starts calling him a little princess, with Gramps immediately, and almost like a Dragon Ball style counter, just boom, one punch knocks the goblin queen to the ground, and he just starts yelling out and calling them punks and cussing at everybody there. And then he starts grappling the goblin queen, and all of the hooded figures are just staring in confusion that this just can't be the princess that they know of, and they all run away on their horses in fear. Gramps then looks down at his hands and he starts thinking that it's been years since his body felt so light, but his heart is beating so much faster than it normally does when he hears someone call out, "Your Highness, thank God, you're safe and sound." And we see an old knight and a young elf mage arrive at the scene, exclaiming that the princess is safe, and they're just super excited. And as they're saying this, the Gramps just like grabs onto the knight's shirts and saying, "Wait, who are you calling princess? I'm not no princess." The knight and the elf girl just go off to the side to speak to each other, and they're just like, "Hey, something's off with the princess. The princess wouldn't even hurt a fly, and now she's being all aggressive all of a sudden. Like, what's up with her?" Okay, small disclaimer as we continue, because it's gonna get confusing between calling him an old guy Gramps and now calling him some princess. So for future reference, I'll mainly be calling him Princess Ryu, as that's how he's gonna be referred to as we continue the series. But sometimes I still may refer to him as Gramps, but Gramps and Princess Ryu, they're the same person. But I'll probably slip up, but just follow me along with it. Now, the age-old question of what would a man do if he was put into a girl's body? Well, Gramps answers that with the obvious answer right away by flipping up his skirt to see what he has, and he's freaking out that something is missing, and he's getting confirmation that, yup, he's a woman now. And the knight and elf are just like, whoa, 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 hey, hold up, you're a princess, you can't be showing off your region like that. The elf girl explains to Lady Ryu that she is not some Yakuza and she doesn't even know what an Asian race is, which is pretty funny, but she's not this man that she keeps saying. She is indeed the princess of this kingdom who was lured out by some enemies in ambush, so at least that part was true about the story, but everything else that they're saying is not true. She's a princess now. We also learn the names of the knight and the elf, with the knight being named Giovanni, which is a pretty fitting name for a knight actually, and the elf being named Niu, which is also a pretty fitting name for an elf. They brief Lady Ryu on the situation that the goblins are in service of the Demon King, but they don't know who these weird hooded people were that ambushed Lady Ryu in the forest. But they assume that they're a part of this faction of Lady Ryu's brother, who is also looking to become the next king and usurp the throne from Lady Ryu. We see a map and we see that they started their journey from the royal capital of Lundberg and they went through the Cursed Forest, which is the same forest that Grimm's first woke up in, and they are going to cross the border into the city of Daname. Giovanni and Niu are now taking Lady Ryu through the forest to go from the capital to the nearby city of Daname, as the king there thinks highly of Lady Ryu and it would be a lot safer to be there as of now, but they first will stop in the city of Tashitoria to stock supplies, which actually is a town that the princess, Lady Ryu, formerly created to give the poor and destitute people of the land a place to live. And as they arrive, instead of being met with the town that they were expecting, they're instead met with the grim town with skulls on wooden spikes and animals carrying hands and arms for food. As they look up and they just see chaos everywhere. There's goblins everywhere and it just almost looks like a horror movie. But although the town's in chaos and there are some goblins running around, there is still some normal people that are in the town. But as they enter the town, Giovanni runs off into the town with Lady Ryu and Niu running into a bar. Lady Ryu goes into the bar and just literally just starts downing barrels of alcohol, and I mean like literally just takes a whole barrel and just starts gulping it down. And the bartender there basically explains to them that yeah, this town has just basically gone downhill, as they ended up actually resenting the nobles and that Lady Ryu never really implemented all of the things that she founded the town for. She said that she was going to abolish slavery and create this equal society, mixing together different people, and these things all sounded great, but she didn't end up doing anything to achieve any of that, so the people ended up just hating her. She just basically threw all her money here but never did anything to actually help the town. We then see a scene which honestly was about a chapter long, but I'll just summarize it briefly because it's not the most important. But basically this little girl comes in and she's selling medicine, but it's actually a scam because it's medicine that will stop bleeding, but it actually doesn't really treat the wound that you're trying to cover with it. And Niu knows of this and tells Lady Ryu, but Lady Ryu still buys all of it because she feels bad for the girl because she's living in this place. But all things aren't good here obviously, because Lady Ryu sees the kid run off to some big bald conehead looking guy and says that he already knew that there was going to be a ringleader, and if the kid didn't fulfill her quota, it could have ended badly for her. Almost as if, you know, Lady Ryu knows about the crime life and how things work there. But anyways, the guy gets mad at the girl for not selling the medicine for even more money, even though she just sold all that she had to Lady Ryu. And Lady Ryu sees this and gets mad at him for this and gets into a fight with him, in which the guy does the most insane anime power-up you can ever think of snorting white powder. I'm trying to avoid demonetization saying that, but basically he has 3 lines which he just snorts in front of her, which I've never actually seen anime use that type of power up. It's pretty funny, but Lady Ryu still beats him up and then says she's going to take back this town and defeat whoever's taking over this town from her. As Lady Ryu is going towards the city center to go fight whoever's taking over this town, Giovanni runs up and grabs both Lady Ryu and Niu, saying that he told them not to go around in these costumes as everyone's looking at them. Basically, he's trying to get them out of trouble and have them play along, but Lady Ryu tells him to let her go and actually punches him in the face, but Giovanni just grabs tighter onto her and says to listen to him because he's actually gathered some info from when they ran off. They then retreat to their wagon to debrief and change their clothes as they got pretty dirty in all of the fighting, but during this scene, Niu takes Lady Ryu's hand and says that they have proof that she's the princess, and that's through her guiding tree, which basically she touches her hand and then you see going up her arm almost like a tree pattern, and she explains that this is a record of who people are in this world. Each person has this guiding tree, and it goes from a person's birth to their personality to their hobbies. It tells you everything about someone once you can use this ability. It's almost like someone's fingerprint is linked to each person specifically, but this actually has meaning to show who people are, and that's how they know that this is truly the princess. We then learn from Giovanni the info that he had, that basically there's a drug called Dusk that has swept through the royal capital, and it's highly addictive, and Lady Ryu gets upset, saying how whenever people flood the streets with these things, it causes a lot of problems, and gets really upset at this, which once again, he's like a Yakuza member, but he's kind of like a good Yakuza member. He doesn't want like drugs and things like that. He just kind of wants order within the town. We also learned that they've been mixing this drug in the town's wheat supply, which is at the windmill, the same one that Lady Ryu paid to be built, which is kind of why people don't like her, as they kind of blame her for this. But while they're doing that, a kid comes up and tells Lady Ryu and her crew that there's a knight that's looking for her, which is a knight Zig Bruce. And although he's a knight, he's not really a good guy, because we see him and he's actually the person that's in control of this windmill, and he's forcing a lot of the kids of the town to run it for him and mix all of the drugs into the wheat, poisoning their supply and things like that. And this is where we start the next arc, to where Lady Ryu sets off towards the windmill to take back her town and then stop the drug supply that's flooding into the capital, as like I mentioned, he's a Yakuza member, but he's a pretty good Yakuza member, and he doesn't just want his town filled with drug users. And this is also where we're gonna end the first part of this manga. So if you would like to see a part 2, and if you've been enjoying the manga so far, just leave a comment, and I definitely recommend that you like and subscribe. But thanks for watching.